Hi, everyone. I'm on tonight with Carrie Pardon. And as soon as you get on, go ahead and let us know that you are on, and we will get started soon. So we'll go ahead and just wait for everybody to get on and go ahead and get started. So if you're watching, just let me know that you're watching and let me know that you're on. Let us know where you're from. I'm on with my good friend, Carrie Pardon. It's going to be an incredible night. I have great expectation for tonight. I know that you're going to get a lot out of it. So as you get on, go ahead and just let us know that you're on. Let us know where you're from, and we'll go ahead and get started in just a bit. And I'll go ahead and introduce you in just a bit, Carrie. I'm going to wait for some people to get on. How are you doing tonight, Carrie?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good for 8 o'clock.
Right. Have you had clients all day?
It's been a day.
Yeah. And we'll just see. Oftentimes it takes a little bit. So, hi, Ann. Ann Trudeau's on.
Hi, Ann.
Hi, Ann. Glad you're on.
I'm feeling a little spicy tonight, so I hope y'all are ready.
Good.
Yeah.
That's awesome. We need some of that.
I might as well have some fun, right?
Right, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Like last night, we did the prophetic call out, and we were praying before, and we were like, you know what? Let's just have fun with us and go with it.
Yeah.
Sometimes we just need that.
Mm-hmm.
So, as you get on, everyone, go ahead and just let us know that you're on. I am on with my good friend Carrie Pardon tonight. We're going to have a great conversation on boundaries and self-care. And at the end, we will be opening it up for question and answer. So try to save your questions for the end. If you want to go ahead and put in some comments and things like that as we're going through and interact with us, please do. But we'll do question and answer at the end. So I'm seeing comments, but I'm not seeing who they're from. But I see Sherry on Bernier. Hi there.
Mom.
And yeah, I'm not even, let me just go ahead and see. We'll go ahead and start in just a minute. Hi, Leslie. Good. I'm glad that you're on. Leslie is new to the group, and she's from Hawaii.
Oh, aloha.
Yeah, aloha. That's what she says.
We need your warm weather.
I know. She said she's coming here, and I'm like, she's like, I'd like to meet you. And I'm like, I'd rather meet you in Hawaii than here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, she's from Maui, she's saying. So.
We would all like to do that.
Yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So now someone said, I'm a Gen 1 gal. I'm not sure. Oh, okay. Leslie Johnson. She says Carrie knows me. So awesome. Okay, well, we'll go ahead and get started. So hi, everybody. I'm Diana Neal, as most of you know, and I am on tonight with my good friend, Carrie Pardon. Carrie and we've been friends. Carrie, I was trying to figure out, and I think it's been 15 or 16 years.
Gotta be close.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the other day when I was introducing you, I said over 25 years. I'm like, no. So anyway, Carrie and I have been really good friends for a long time. And not only friends, Carrie came into my life at the most broken time of my life and has walked me through a ton of healing as a friend, as a mentor, as just guided me so much. And thank you so much for that, Carrie. We've been through a lot, and you've really been such a loyal person and someone that has really seen me for me, accepted me, has loved me. And for that, I really appreciate you. And I appreciate you being on. I'm super honored that you're on tonight. So thank you so much.
Yeah, it's an honor to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So Carrie Pardon is on right now, and she is the executive director of Emergis Transformation Center. And you'll be able to connect with her if you go on the page, and even later I will put on her website again, and you'll be able to connect with her on there. She's a licensed counselor, a coach, a consultant. She has experience in inner healing, specifically sozo. She's a pastor, and she has many years of a business background as well. And so Carrie is just an amazing person with many different giftings, and I know that you're going to get a lot out of it tonight. So as you jump on, go ahead and let us know that you're on. And Carrie, do you want to add anything to what I said or tell people a little bit about what you do?
That actually sounded really good. Thanks.
Right. I can intro every time.
That was awesome. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm working full time now as a counselor, and I have a really person-centered approach. So it's an insight orientation called psychodynamics. So I like to take a look at kind of how people's past are affecting them in the present. I like to work with people who've been through trauma. I get lots of people who've had narcissistic abuse and personality disorders, lots of anxiety and depression. So boundaries and self-care, I feel like, are a huge topic for all of us.
Yes.
Dude, I'm still trying to manage those myself. Like, I never think we arrive. I think there's always something that we can learn and grow in. So yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
You taught me a lot on boundaries, and I told everybody in the group that, I'm like a recovering people pleaser and boundary-free lifestyle.
Mhm.
Like, and like you said, we haven't arrived. There's always more to learn. And just when I think I'm like really good at it, something comes up and I'm like, wow, why is this challenging me right now? Why is it difficult? And actually, we'll dive into that. And before we do, I'd like to bring you back on 1 month to do something on narcissism, because I've seen it coming up so much, this topic. And I think a lot of people are coming out, sharing their story. It would be great to bring you back on for that as well.
Sure. Love to do it. Yeah. It's tough to walk out of, and so important for people to have support. I love the group. Thank you so much for starting the group. What an amazing platform for people to just share their stories and get support and connect and find out, you know what, you're not alone. You're not alone. There are other people who are going through, might not be the same thing, but similar things. And we all have good things to share and teach each other. So yeah, great idea. Thank you for just stepping into that. That's amazing.
Yeah, thank you. It's been powerful for me because I've walked out a long journey of breaking shame, obviously, off of my own story and my own life. And it's been so empowering for me to help other people do the same thing. Having a platform where people are starting to share their stories, they're getting comfortable, owning their story, being proud of who they are, and saying, this is the thing that's going to catapult me to the next place. And this is the thing, like, people are getting really honest with themselves too. And they're saying, I really want healing and growth. And people have come forward and said, either one, I was afraid to do it. And now hearing other stories, I'm getting the courage to go after it. Or, there's been other people that said, I didn't even realize how much trauma and how many things that I've been, stuffing down. And now I'm scared, but I'm ready to go after this and look at it. So I'm excited about that. And what I'm also really happy about is bringing church and mental health together. Education and having people connect, connecting other people in that as well, because we've talked a lot on here about the church and just lack of knowledge, lack of education. And a lot of people with mental health issues and different things like that have been burned. And
it's well said. I believe that healing was God's first.
Yes.
It was God's idea first. And the church did step into it, but we stopped. We stopped at a certain point, and unfortunately, we did hurt people, and that's not okay. So I am thankful that the psychology field was able to, really raise up and meet people where they were at. And I do believe that the church is going to meet us there. We have to. We have to. So.
Yeah, and I'm seeing it too, like with churches having mental health awareness months and really diving into it. So that's exciting to me. So we'll go ahead and get started. So as you come on, go ahead and let us know that you're on. We would love to say hi. And hi, Janet. Hi, Hannah. Hi, Leslie, Sheila, everyone that's on. I'm on with my good friend, Carrie Pardon. We're going to get started. However, I'll just say this real quick. Carrie is with Emergis Transformation Center. She's the executive director. She's a coach, a consultant. She's a licensed counselor. She has a pastor background in business and inner healing. And so we're going to dive right into boundaries. And so, Carrie, the other day I made a comment, and it was, courage is placing a boundary even when it hurts. And so we've been talking about boundaries being uncomfortable and people being really afraid to set those. And even with family, in marriages, and feeling false guilt and responsibility. And so being an expert, I'd love to ask you, you're like, wow. Are boundaries necessary, even in family and in marriage? And why are they so difficult to implement?
So great questions. And so let's just back up a minute just for me, because I haven't been with you, the whole time. I've been trying on your site. But boundaries, right, are limits that we place to protect ourselves in some way. They help us define what we're responsible for, and they really serve two functions, right? They tell others how we want to be treated, and they keep us from being mistreated. But they also allow us to create healthy connections. And yes, sometimes that includes separation. And the thing is when we grow up in homes where there weren't clear boundaries, there weren't clear expectations, like this stuff does not come naturally and is really, really hard. And it feels honestly so unloving, and it feels like you are doing the absolute wrong thing. So, and I'll say this a couple of times. So if you're out there and you're having a hard time setting boundaries, I encourage you to get either a couple of friends who can walk through this with you, because everybody's situation is different. And that means the boundaries are going to look and sound a little different. And the more you talk with people and the more you write them out and you practice saying them, the easier they are to implement. You can also find a therapist. They will walk through it with you and really help you know what's appropriate and what isn't appropriate, because it's really not altogether clear. I also wanted to kind of go through different types of boundaries, because sometimes when we hear about boundaries, it feels like we got to kick people out. We have to put up big walls. And I think that that can happen. And there are other ways that we can implement boundaries. So there are 6 different areas really that I like to talk with people about in terms of boundaries. An easy one is physical boundaries, right? We have a right to protect our space and our body. I mean, how many of you had siblings? I didn't have this, but we had a right to say, hey, please don't borrow my clothes without asking. That's normal. Maybe that's a little bit easier than some other ones, but we have a right to do that. We have a right to emotional boundaries. We have a right to have our own feelings, to not have them invalidated, to not have them criticized. And I give you all permission, we can set boundaries that don't take care of other people's feelings, right? It's not our responsibility how someone will respond to us. So we get to say sometimes, hey, I don't really want to talk about that, but thanks for asking. We get to say, hey, I'd love to talk with you, but not while you're angry. We get to set good, strong emotional boundaries. We get to set them in financial and in material ways, right? We get to protect our financial resources. You might have people in your life who like to borrow money from you. It's okay to say, hey, I'm not able to do that right now. You know, we can always pray for them, or we can send them to different places, but we don't have to feel compelled to meet those needs. We get to set good, healthy boundaries. We get to set good, healthy sexual boundaries, right? It's our right to consent. It's our right to ask for what we like sexually. It's our right to know when we're in covenant with someone, or we're thinking about getting in covenant with someone, about our partner's sexual history. That's not one we talk about a lot, but I think we need to talk about it a lot more, because it's really powerful. We have a right to set boundaries with time. Whew, this is my biggest place of difficulty. I'll be honest with you. Time is a limited resource, and how I spend my time is so key to me being successful. And I know we're going to talk about self-care. This is a big self-care area for me. So it's about protecting the things that we've been committed to, or that we've committed to, not being overworked. This is a big one. How many of you have bosses at work that just keep on giving the work? And when we don't know how to set healthy boundaries, we feel like we have to keep taking it on. But we do actually have the ability, and I want to empower everyone to be able to say, hey, I'll be happy to check my emails in the morning. I can do that project for you, tomorrow or whenever you can. I protect my time at night for my family. This is key. The last one, we have a right to our intellectual and spiritual boundaries, right? We have the right to believe what we want to believe. We get to think what we want to think. We get to pursue growth. And we want to honor people in those places, and we can expect them to honor us. That answers the question?
Yeah, that's amazing. And so what I'm hearing in a way, and let me know if you agree with this, but I feel like there's all these areas that you mentioned, and thank you for mentioning the part about sex and intimacy, because I think there's a lot of skewed beliefs, especially like misinterpreted scriptures and things like that, right? And so I appreciate you being real and mentioning that as well, because I think people need to be educated on that. But what I'm hearing is like there's all these areas, but at the same time, at the root of it, it's fear when we don't want to set the boundary, like fear of people's feelings, fear of, I know for me, when I've had to draw more drastic boundaries and do a complete separation, I was always really afraid of their outcome, as if I was responsible for their outcome. And oftentimes, like, the best thing to do, and that's what we'll get into next, I had made a comment that setting a boundary does not reflect your ability to accept, forgive, or love. And oftentimes we think, oh, we're setting this boundary. This is, I'm not being loving, or, am I being forgiving? Am I accepting this person? And so I've been talking to the group about boundaries are a loving act. And sometimes we need to set those boundaries for the betterment, not only of ourselves, but the other person as well. And so I've been talking about how we need to separate those two things. And I've had people come on in the group because I did a poll, and 50%, I would say, or less than 50%, said they're really good at setting boundaries. And then the other half of people, with the exception of a couple, said that they don't know how to do it. They're afraid to do it, or they don't know how and they want to learn. And then there were a few people that said they didn't believe that it was God's idea of like love, right? And so I don't shame anyone for that because we've all been taught differently.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I had other people say, hey, I've been abused in the church because I've believed that I had to take on more, I had to do more. And because of it, now I'm bitter, now I'm angry, and I don't even want to be a part of church because I spent 15 years of my kids' lives and my marriage doing for the church and not doing for our family. And now we're all suffering. And
Mm-hmm.
so, go ahead. Were you going to say something?
Yeah, can I just stop you right
Yeah,
here, stop you right here for a
yeah,
minute? And as a pastor, can I just address that?
please. That's,
Because I just want to apologize to all of those people.
yeah.
Not that I've been your pastor, but if I am and I've hurt you in any way, I
Mm-hmm.
want to ask you to forgive me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm human. We are human, and we have made terrible mistakes
Yeah,
in what we have done and asked people to do because we didn't respect boundaries
yeah,
and we didn't know about boundaries. And oftentimes we didn't have your best interest in heart.
yeah.
And so I'm just asking, can you forgive me for
Mm-hmm.
not respecting your boundaries? If
Yeah.
you're out there and you've been hurt by pastors, I just apologize on behalf of all of us.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Carrie. That's a beautiful moment for
Mhm.
people to receive that. You on behalf of other pastors that don't know better or wish they
Mhm.
could go back
Yep.
and say sorry. And so
Mhm.
thank you so much. And
Mhm.
can I ask you, what do you think God's perspective is on boundaries?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I appreciate the couple of people who feel like perhaps it's not loving to set boundaries. I think that I lived there for a really long time
Yeah,
because the Bible really teaches two sides of love. And that first side of love is accepting and forgives people just as they are.
yeah,
And when we're really high in this area,
yeah,
we tend to enable people. We tend to take on too much. We tend to let people who hurt us stay close to us.
yeah,
And the thing is the Bible also teaches this other side of love that acknowledges truth and it requires righteous behavior. And there is such tension in those two. And it's not clear exactly how to walk that out. The word boundaries isn't any place in the Bible.
right,
Um, eh, wish it was.
right,
But what it does say in Psalm 85:10, I go back to this. It says, loving kindness and truth have met together, righteousness and peace have kissed each other. And yeah, it's beautiful. And we know God wants us to be like him. And he called us into righteousness. That's really right standing, right? And to me, kind of that right standing, those are the boundaries that God set up.
yeah.
So he set up boundaries for us to be in relationship with him, and he wants us to be like him and to set up boundaries with for other people to be in relationship as well.
Right. And for us, and thank you, Carrie, for answering that. Because we need them not only for ourselves, we
Mhm.
need that, we need it for our peace of mind, and other people, unknowingly, sometimes they need it too. And, because a lot of people will make us their crutches if we
Mhm.
don't set that boundary with them.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so it is love. So would you say that, boundaries, that you can have boundaries, yet stay in a place of total acceptance, like
Mhm.
not okaying behavior that
Right.
is abusive or wrong or overstepping, but can you stay in a place of acceptance and love and forgiveness, yet still have a boundary?
Absolutely. Remember, forgiveness is about keeping our relationship with the Lord. He
Mhm.
asks us to forgive others so that he can forgive us. So
Yeah.
forgiveness really isn't about the other person and what they did. It doesn't excuse them. It doesn't say that the behavior was right. It doesn't say that it was good. It doesn't say any of those things. It just says, hey, I want to keep this clear with the Lord, so I'm going to extend forgiveness. It also means we get to take what we're carrying and we get to give it to him, and then he carries it. So
Yeah.
when we can separate it that way, I can say, I can forgive anyone for what they've done. Now, how close I'm going to let them come to me really depends on, the word talks about the fruit in keeping with repentance. When
Mhm.
people repent and say they're sorry, that's certainly the first step. But once they've done that, I need to see that their behavior is going to line up with their I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm going to set a boundary. I'm going to set a boundary that protects me from any kind of behavior that steals my energy, that hurts me, that would cause me to be mistreated in any way. And
Mhm.
then if that boundaries are ours and they're movable, right? And so if that person can prove the fruit in keeping with repentance, they can prove they're sorry and they're changing their behavior and they're learning how to honor us and
Mhm.
to be respectful, I can move my boundary and
Yes.
I can always let them come closer. I
Yeah.
don't think God requires us to do it. I think what he asks us is to have an open heart
Yes.
and to be able to do that when we see that the person can be honoring towards us.
Hmm. Yeah, and the other day when we were talking and just catching up, Carrie, you mentioned right now open heart, but the other day you even you said like a soft heart. Like
Mm-hmm.
we need to have a soft enough heart, to be pliable, to be open to what God's saying. And
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes, we're in fear and we're like, wow, we don't want to open that door up again because that was really messy. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm going to keep this shut. But
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes, obviously, people change and people grow and people heal. And so there are moments where we open back our life, we change that boundary, we move that
Mm-hmm.
boundary, and we're able to have good relationship. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's where, I've even learned from you a lot, but feedback.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Feedback's important. And
Mm-hmm.
those moments of setting boundaries, the moments of sharing feedback back and forth, then we have an opportunity to move towards each other and to be
Mm-hmm.
able to resolve conflict and actually grow our relationships. And
Absolutely.
so that to me, it's like we are what you said, we are in control of that space.
Mm-hmm.
And yet just know that you can move the boundary and maybe that relationship will come back in a closer way. And if it doesn't, there's more peace in our lives. We're
Absolutely.
removing ourselves. And that's one of the things I'm going to get into is the other day I said boundaries mean saying yes to you and no to toxicity. And
Mm-hmm.
that the norm for many people have been to have no boundaries, and being healthy, actually feels uncomfortable. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think that goes back to what you were saying, that we weren't taught boundaries. And so oftentimes we weren't taught or modeled boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
And so we feel it's cruel or it seems uncomfortable. And it's more comfortable to be in chaos or dysfunction, and we don't even realize we're in it until we're exhausted or angry or whatever it might be, and like wanting to isolate because we don't want to be around people. And so that's a real thing. And so for the people listening tonight, can you tell me what advice would you give them on where to start when setting boundaries? I know in the beginning you gave some strategy. So for people even
Mm-hmm.
getting on now.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. So the place to start first is just to start paying attention to the places where life hurts, relationship hurts, and I want you to pay attention to your feelings. They're really the signposts. They are the indication that there may need to be a boundary. So you might feel fear. You mentioned fear,
Yeah.
resentment, anger. You might be feeling irritated around someone a lot, maybe frustration, maybe disappointment.
Yeah.
And this is that place to find the friend, talk with a therapist, work out the intensity of the emotion. I do want to say this, it's not the time to set boundaries when you are feeling really emotional about the situation or the person. If you can regulate, if you can come into a place of peace and kind of calm down, that's the time to think about what is the boundary that I need in this relationship. So when you're calm, then you want to think about being clear about what you want. Be really specific. And write it out, practice saying it. I know very few people who, when someone sets a boundary with them, say, oh, thank you so much.
Right.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So this is a place where you're going to learn to be tough. Because people don't usually appreciate this at the beginning. They will come to understand that it's love, but it doesn't always feel like it. So write it down, rehearse it, and then be prepared to stay tough. The second thing you're going to want to do is be direct and don't apologize for your needs. You get to be succinct. You don't have to be sorry for what it is that you need. You have a right to have those needs.
Yeah.
So I want to read you 2 examples because it's a good way to hear how we can set a boundary without apologizing or talking too much like I'm doing now.
No, we should have done a role play.
Yeah.
Next time.
Okay. So the first example 1 is, hey, Blue, I'm sorry, but it turns out I'm not going to be able to work for you next Sunday. It's short. It's to the point. It conveys a message. The second one, hey, Blue, I'm really sorry, but, I can't cover your shift on Sunday. Like, I really want to, but, my son has a baseball game and I feel like, I got to be there for him and, it could work, but I forgot about the game. And I hope you're not mad at me. I hope you're not mad at me. I know I'm just so forgetful. Like I didn't. Okay. So you hear the difference. You don't have to apologize. You don't have to give explanations. You get to say what it is that you need to do, and it gets to be okay. Okay, the next thing is expect resistance. I think I said this. I'll say that again. And don't let it deter you. Most people will respond poorly. They're the ones who are benefiting from your lack of boundaries. So no, they probably don't want it to change.
Right.
So this is the place where you stay strong. You have your support. Don't let fear in. And remember, you are not responsible for how other people react to your boundaries. And then we talked about this, but it's worth repeating. Setting boundaries is an ongoing process. And remember, boundaries are for your well-being. They're not to control other people. They're to limit behavior so that you save your energy, you save your peace of mind, and you can be the best you can be for the people you are in relationships with and the commitments that you've made.
Right. That's excellent. Thank you, Carrie, for sharing that. And I want to talk to you for a minute about the apologizing example. That's something I used to do quite often. And I catch myself every once in a while over explaining. I'm a talker. And so it's not common for me to just like get short and to the point. And I'm getting better at obviously the big explanation and sorry. But why do you think people do that? Like, what do you think the root is? For some, it might be obvious, but for others, what do you think that is?
I think it just feels uncomfortable to talk about our needs and what's going to be best for us. And a lot of times I just feel mean. I feel like I'm being rude. I feel like if someone asks me to do something, and this is ridiculous when I'm saying it out loud, I feel like I owe somebody something.
Yes.
But the truth is, we don't really owe them a lot of an explanation. We just owe them an answer. for
Right.
what it is we can do and what it is that we can't do.
Yes. Yeah, that's good. I just set like a practical strategy for my life.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I did, I took my calendar and I put down no on all the dates that meant saying yes to my family. And
Mm.
so it was like, I put down no. So if somebody says, would you like to do something?
Mhm.
Then I'm able to look and say, no, I can't.
Mhm.
And it's been really interesting because even in the process, people ask, well, what are you doing? It's like, wow.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I have a night where I'm spending with my family
Mhm.
and we're just spending time together. But
Mhm.
we don't even have to do that. I can say, hey, I just have plans for the
Yeah.
night. Or
Absolutely.
whatever it might be. So I think it's good to have strategy, even
Mhm.
like you said, like be prepared and
Mhm.
have your people. You said in the beginning, you might have repeated it too, but have a couple of friends around you to support you in this process. And obviously have a therapist if you really, need to. I believe everybody needs a therapist.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Me
I'll
too.
have a therapist forever, probably. So I love it. And so, with that being said, it's good to have those people
Mhm.
because when you start feeling guilt, like I have specific people that contact me and say, hey, I'm starting to feel guilty right now. I'm starting to feel false responsibility, and I want
Mhm.
to jump back into that relationship. What do I do? And then that's a moment for us to be able to speak truth
Mhm.
to our friends or them to speak truth to us and then get us, on that path instead of
Mhm.
going backwards.
Mhm.
So,
Great idea.
yeah.
Mhm.
So, now, Carrie, I want to jump into self care because I want to have the time for question and answer. I know that there are people on and they're going to have some questions and so forth. So, can you briefly talk to me? Uh,
Mhm.
it doesn't have to be brief, but on what is self care?
Yeah.
I talked about, and sorry, I talked about 6 types of self care
Mhm.
that I did research on, which is social self care, spiritual self care, sensory self care. Some people believe that's not important, and intellectual, emotional, and physical. And
Yeah.
so, can you talk to me about self care and why it's important?
Mhm. I think self-care starts with anything we do intentionally that moves us towards improving our health, body, soul, and spirit.
Yeah.
It's necessary for us in order to really just honor our bodies, right? To do things that renew and refresh and refuel us. And it's going to be different for each one of us. What it's not is doing something we don't like doing
Yeah.
or doing something that we feel forced to do. And
Right.
what's interesting for me when I think about self-care in all of those areas, and I've noticed this for myself. I was thinking about this, like, why is this help? Why is this, restoring me? And one of the things I realized is that, you know what? I'm really nice to myself.
Yeah.
I'm doing things that I like to do.
Yeah.
When I've planned something and I'm doing it, I'm like saying like, wow, this is great. Like I'm like proud of myself that I took time out and that I actually did something.
Yeah.
And so I think tonight what I wanted to talk about was that the key to any self-care that you choose
Mhm.
is really in our self-talk. And
Yeah.
it's really about that self-compassion and
Mhm.
how being compassionate with ourselves, while it's good all of the time, not just during self-care, it
Yeah.
just happens to be easier
Mhm.
while we're doing something that we plan to do and that we like to do. And it really helps to undo that knot of self-judgment.
Yes.
Um, it seems like I haven't met very many people who don't have that harsh critic inside
Yeah.
that's telling us about all of the things we didn't do well, we didn't do good enough, that we're not enough, that we should have been. Y'all got it.
Yeah.
And that thing needs to go.
Yeah.
That's really not very helpful. So I feel like this intentionality around self-care is really helping us to have self-compassion, to have kindness towards ourselves. And I hope that it trickles into our everyday life.
Yeah.
One interesting question that I'll just throw out there.
Yeah.
Or actually, I'm going to let you do it. Go ahead. You have some comments.
Okay. Yeah. So I just saw even Janet said, as moms, I don't think we take enough time for self-care, at least. I know I don't.
Mhm.
And so I think, that's huge. And
Yeah.
I know that I've struggled with that. And I know it's imperative
Mhm.
to do it.
Mhm.
And actually hearing other people, other moms taking time for self-care, it actually, I believe, helps because you're like, wow, you're doing all that for yourself. Like you're taking that time. And then you're like, okay, the guilt isn't there as much. Maybe I should be doing that.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because you talk about self-compassion. And have you read the book, Striving to Thrive by Pete Walker?
I have not read that one.
Okay, it's actually on complex PTSD. It's an intense book, so I'm taking it slow. But it talks about as we're in like group therapy, and I know you facilitate group therapy as well, that there's a component of self-compassion that we get that we wouldn't get in any other arena or atmosphere when we're in group therapy. And I know I'm going off a little bit, but I'll bring us back. And because when we hear somebody else and what they're going through and we can relate on some level, we're giving them that compassion, but then we realize like, oh, wow, I need to give myself that compassion as well.
It's always easier for us to be compassionate towards someone else
yes,
than it is to be compassionate towards ourselves. But
yes.
we hear the similarities, right? In situations, it's like light bulb.
Yeah.
Nice to me about this too.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that where I was going with it is being transparent. We talk about transparency a lot in this group and vulnerability. And as we share, even like for the moms watching, we share the struggles and we stop acting like, super mom or super dad or whatever, and we've got it all together. When we start sharing, our needs and our struggles, and we hear someone that's doing well, like I said, and they're taking care of themselves, it helps us. So I think transparency is a key, even in this area. But with that, I wanted to ask you, how often should we be implementing self-care? Because I know a lot of people already feel guilty or they don't do it. So what would you say, would be a good amount?
Haha. I'm not sure I know what a good amount is.
Right.
But I definitely know that every day we need to be recharged, we need to be refueled. So whether it's drinking a cup of coffee, whether it's taking time to pray and meditate, whether it's taking a bath at the end of the day, every day we need to be doing something that says, hey, I'm worth it, did the best I could, and I'm going to take this time to be the best that I can be.
Yeah, that's so good. So I'm glad that you mentioned a bath because I think this is so funny. So that's a way that I refuel. Like I can just sit, relax, do nothing. And that's something for me. But it was interesting a while ago, actually in school, I had read something. I don't know where it was, but it said that that's not actually self-care. And have you heard anything like that? Because okay, so the area of sensory self-care, they talk about being in nature, going for a walk or just sitting in nature or essential oils or whatever it might be, taking a bath, getting a massage. And so I thought that was really interesting. And I'm like, no, this really refuels me. This gives me life and it's good for me. So I think it's even, paying attention when you try something. Oh, wow, did that refuel me? Am I feeling better
Yep.
or not? And so it's kind of just trying it. So I'm
Mhm.
glad that you said that because I'm like, oh, okay, that is actually self-care.
I think anything that you like to do that refuels and recharges you. For
Yeah.
some of you, it might be taking a hike. And I
Mhm.
want you to know I would never sign up for that as self-care.
Right.
But for some people, that is refueling. And if that works for you, do it.
Yes.
Do it. You will get done with that activity and feel ready to go.
Hmm.
Not ever, but I'll wait for you in the coffee shop.
Right, exactly. That's me.
Mhm. Love you.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, Carrie, thank you so much. If you're good, we can jump right into question and answer. Because,
Um,
yeah, go ahead.
Before we do that, I think the one thing I want to encourage all of you to do when it comes to self-care is to really ask yourself the question, in your life, what do you detect when you're needing self-care?
Mm,
What is it that happens?
right.
I was thinking about this question for me, and it was like a light bulb. You
Yeah.
know, the first thing that I see go in my life when I'm needing self care and I haven't been doing it,
Mhm.
my routines are out the window.
Right.
All of my routines go. All of a sudden, I'm hitting the snooze button. I'm sleeping in too long. The second thing that goes for me is I start carb loading. Anybody else?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, bring me some bread.
Yeah.
And I had a time not long ago where I was like, okay, hold on. I
Yeah.
saw those things were happening and it was time for me to stop and carve it out and just say, okay, what do I need? What do I need to do to refuel? Because I'm not in my best me. And if I keep doing that, trust me, my genes are going to speak the truth to me.
Right.
Yes,
So
they
you're
are.
saying pay attention to behavior. And
Hmm.
one indicator is that your routines are out the door and
Hmm.
you're not on your game.
That's for me,
Mhm.
and so for each person, it would be great just to think about what do you detect in your behavior and your emotions that are keys for you
Mhm.
that you really need to take a break and do some self-care.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Like identifying your behaviors and your triggers, even.
Mm.
So I know for me, mine is irritability
Yep.
and isolation, which is
Mm.
opposite of my personality. And if
Mhm.
I'm not taking care of myself, I'm I'm either irritable or I'm like, I just need to be alone. And it's because I'm not doing the things I need to do to refuel me as you're pouring out, you need that. So
Yep.
thank
Like,
you so much. I'm glad that you added that
yeah.
because that's huge. We need to
Mhm.
identify what it
Mhm.
is.
Mhm.
So yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah,
Do you want to share anything else before we jump in?
I'm good.
No? Okay, great. So I'm just going to kind of go through. If you're watching, let us know that you're on. And I could talk about this subject. We could go for another hour,
Mm.
but we won't. So, as you get on, please let us know that you're on and put in your questions. Carrie is, I call her an expert. She's a licensed therapist, coach, a consultant, and a pastor. She's got a lot of experience. And so this is a great time to ask some questions.